the Grey Hat Beard podcast.
Hello and welcome to show 41 of Grey Hat Beard part 2. We are the modern workplace podcast that talks about all things Microsoft 365. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to that from last week. We'd covered all the latest, kind of some of the latest news that we've remembered about, and there wasn't too much there, but we had a good chat and enjoyed talking about things like the together mode in Teams and a lot about GitHub code spaces. So do go back and give that a listen. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what's front of mind at the moment. So the kind of things that are bouncing around that we think are big at the moment and what's going to be happening over the next 6 months. Now, Al was strangely quiet in part 1, so I'm going to, because you're wearing a fish shirt and you know I don't like fish, I'm going to pick on you first. So Al, what's front of mind, and what do you see being big over the next 6 months?
That's a really interesting question, because timing is always interesting. We get into autumn and there's going to be conferences. We've got Ignite obviously coming up that, we're expecting some technical announcements, but actually certainly where I'm working, the Microsoft Technology Center, we're hearing a lot about COP26 and sustainability, and a lot of clients are actually really interested in that. And Microsoft have just released an internal badge, Sustainability in Action, basically educating staff to be able to talk about sustainability and the pledges that Microsoft have made and things. And it's something that we see it as how modern work, we're not traveling so much, so therefore there's not so much pollution. Moving your data centers to Azure, you're making the most of what Microsoft are doing in terms of zero carbon, starting to recycle things. That's playing into a lot of what clients are looking at and how they're actually trying to shape how they use technology to support sustainability objectives for their own, their shareholders, their customers, their brand. And so I think that's quite an interesting one where, technically we've got a lot of technology that we can use, but actually the drivers are slightly changing. And, obviously employee experience, again, the drivers they're not what we traditionally would have thought of as, well, let's introduce a new system. It's let's think about something that's softer. Employee experience is a combination of lots of different things, from well-being through to communication, learning, that aren't necessarily what we would have considered previously as big drivers for technical change. So from my perspective, I'm sort of seeing that kind of change in the drivers that organizations are using to actually make budgetary considerations and budgetary decisions being quite an interesting change in how we actually even just ask the first question of, well, why are you doing this? So that's for me, that's where I'm seeing quite a big shift moving forwards.
It was funny when the sort of first lockdown, certainly in the UK, happens. There was so much about everywhere being quieter and nature coming back, and how there was so much less pollution. But I've kind of found as the message about returning to the office is sort of getting stronger and stronger. I saw the Evening Standard today had there was like a 20% jump in the number of people in London, and the number of people in trains was massively increasing. But I'm not hearing the same conversation about actually working from home, how much that kind of affects sustainability and helps the environment. That message seems to have gone a little quieter, which is interesting. So it was really interesting you raised that one.
Yeah, I think it's very much that different organisations have sustainability at different levels on their agenda. If they've made a sustainability commitment, how they achieve it, whether it's a manufacturing process, a distribution process, or for those organisations that have, more of a digital footprint, how they look at that. I think it really depends on the organisation, and certainly as a platform provider, Microsoft is in a brilliant position to actually look at some of those and address some of those underlying challenges from a platform perspective that organizations can then say, well, actually, yeah, we are supporting the environment by using different products. And it really depends on the industry that they're in as to how much of a difference looking at the technology can make. So I wouldn't expect it to be really broad in terms of how organisations look at it. But those organisations that do look at it are finding out some very interesting facts around, their own impact on the environment and their own opportunities to actually change the way they look at the environment.
I'm looking off to one side slightly because there was someone I was following on Twitter, and he, about 2 years ago, seems to change focus to talking a lot about the impact on the environment of the move to digitalisation, and that you kind of think by moving it digital, reducing paper and things like that, but actually the use of more and more data centres and more things still does have an environmental impact, and actually we're doing more and therefore having a bigger impact. So even moving off paper in some ways doesn't always kind of offset things, and it'd be interesting to know sort of Microsoft's views and thoughts on that, because I think in a world, I don't want to get too much on a political soapbox, but where we're kind of getting more and more about throwing things away, being a disposable nature is natural, it's easier to move quickly and things on there. Actually, that cloud attitude is saying that, spin up a VM, you spin up more stuff, and even if you reduce the cost, there still could be things left and running. You're bringing back more data. There's got to be places to host that data. Trying to get some understanding of the sustainability impact of doing all those things as well, I think, is hopefully a message that will start taking off a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's things like, how much water do you use to cool down a data center? How much water is being polluted through that process versus how much do you put in and preserve to prevent flooding? It's such a complex. So I did this because this certification purely because I've got clients asking for it, but I absolutely learned so much and I had a great afternoon just learning about it. There was things that I had absolutely no idea that we were thinking about. Circular economy, by 2030, all the commitments Microsoft have made for, zero carbon, but then by 2050, carbon negative, which it's an opportunity, and a lot of organizations are looking at it, but not all of them are looking at it in as radical a way as I think we probably all agree it needs to be looked at. So yeah, I'm seeing that. I'm certainly seeing that, and I'm seeing COP26 as being quite a big trigger point in October for organizations to use that as a jump start to really assess
and sorry,
what
COP26, that's the big event in Glasgow, isn't it? The world's...
In Glasgow, yeah, that's the global climate. I say COP26. You know what? I have no idea what it stands for. But yeah, it's the global.
We'll find out and put it in the show notes anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
Really
so yeah, that's one of the things. Obviously, hybrid as well. How we're looking at, as you said, people going back into London. Well, actually, how many are not going back, and how many are, it seems to be quite a difficult decision for a lot of organisations as to what they do and how they do it. And I think that'll continue to be something that a lot of organisations will wrangle with over the coming months.
And I'd love to see sustainability being a bigger part of that thoughts and discussions as well. I think it's a good reason, and I know going into London, a lot of people get the train, so it's slightly better. But even so, the impact of that is still massive. That travel.
Yeah, I think with people, being going back to the office and things, it's making. I think when people are saying, well, do I have to come into the office? It's another part of that discussion, right? It's not just, oh, I need to be present in the office. It's, well, the impact of me actually jumping on the train or whatever. Is it the right thing to be doing? And, I think a lot of employees will have a lot of say in this as well to their organisations, of which, that's, again, something that I'm definitely, and we're all going to see going forwards, I think, is that choice to how coming back to the office or offices reopening is going to happen, really. Some people are going to be really happy to go back to the office. Some of the people are going to think, I don't really want to go back to the office as much as I did because I'm seeing the benefits of not going to the office. Either that's from their own work-life balance as well, and then, like you say, from a sustainability point of view as well. So I think, there's a whole cultural aspect, transformation aspect of organisations that they're going to be going through, which I think probably they didn't expect was going to happen as well. But I think that's going to be a consequence of coming out of the pandemic, I think, as well, because employees' needs have just changed so much over the past 18 months longer, that now everyone has different considerations. And we've talked about Viva, employee experience. Again, like I said, the things that organizations probably wouldn't have thought about spending money on before. It's like you say, the soft stuff. It's about employees and how you nurture those employees and make sure that that they can be their best. They're not feeling burnt out, stressed, because they're not going to be in a position to be able to do productive, creative work, which is ultimately going to help organisations either thrive or not going forward. So it's interesting to see how that's going to be handled, and I think there is no one answer. It's going to have to be on a case by case basis, I would assume, but I think it's cater for everyone, right? And that is a complex thing.
It's funny because you used the word choice a little bit there. I hope it is, but I think we're going to see a lot of cases where companies have made investments and they can't just suddenly stop that in a building. They may invest a little bit more and kind of change the focus of that. But I think, and I'm hearing this more and more, that people are mandating that they come back a certain amount of time, or certainly you have to agree which days it is you're going to be in the office and which days you're not on there. It's not going to be a kind of, where shall I work today? Next week I'm going to work there. And I've been quite lucky. My last few places, I have had a lot of flexibility about saying which days. Yes, if I had a meeting with a client, I'd go and be there. Even when I was working on the client side, I could sort of say, well, I'm going to go and work in this office. I'd probably at the beginning of the week say I'll do these, but there's no real reason apart from meetings I have with people, and generally they could be remote as well. But I don't think many places are quite so lucky, because they're going to want to see enough people in an office to justify it, or to decide to get rid of it. So I think one thing I thought we were going to see is quite a lot of contention, I reckon, over the next 6 months, because there's going to be a lot of change. And there's going to be a lot of readjustment that happens.
And I think you have to remember that some people have to be in the office, and some people are going to have the ultimate choice of where they're going to be. And that's
some people don't work in offices,
yeah, and that's going to be a disparity. That's going to be something that's going to make a quite significant difference to the way people choose what career they're going to have. Do they want to be in an office? Do they not want to be in an office? Do they want to be in 2 days a week, or do they want to be in 5 days a week? And I can see some teams reshaping themselves over time, so they start to become a blend of people with the same view of what they want to do in terms of that work-life balance, and people moving based on maybe what they've found is the better way to work. Great, I've found that I've moved to the countryside, I get a much better work-life balance, I want to work remote, I need to change my job to find somewhere that will allow me to work remotely more often. And I think that will be an interesting longer term impact of how teams, the anatomy of the team and the members of the team, rather than an organization saying, well, you all have to be doing this.
And I think, again, that will cause contention as well. I always remember when I sort of first started work, there was always the smokers and the non-smokers, and the smokers kind of made the route between each other. And actually, it was a great way of getting inter-team bonding, because they would go and get to meet other people in other teams, and it was kind of a certain clique towards that. And I can see that happening for people going into the office. There's going to be a clique that will appear there as well, versus those who are more at home and things. And keeping an eye on that, I think, will be absolutely key. And whether that's how teams will form, and those who work in the office will start to drift together more, and those who are remote will drift together more, possibly.
Yeah, I think, though, to counteract that, so, I've just started in a huge organisation remotely. I've not seen any of my team. I've not seen my line manager. I wouldn't have opportunities to speak to extended teams either I'm going to work with. my solution to that, I spent the first couple of weeks literally just sending half an hour chats to people. Come and have a coffee, let's have a chat. And you go from there. Now, I kind of approach this is really strange and quite uncomfortable at first. It's odd. I'm planning having a chat with you, which should be something that is, go for a coffee or whatever and, meet in the corridor. But actually, I found that, you know what, it actually helped my kind of networking, because I was able to plan in a time that was comfortable for the other people to chat. And actually, I found that I've been able to go from one chat, speak to this other person, and then it just becomes natural to go,
most of those people at home still.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's amazing. I think it's a great indication of how things can change. I think what will be interesting is when 50%, a third, 2/3 of those are suddenly back in the office, how much it changes then, and whether it's still as easy to kind of make that connections, and whether people still make that time on there. And I genuinely hope so, but I think that's going to be the interesting bit.
But this is where we come back to cultures, right? It's that thing. If you want to, if you've
got to support that.
Exactly. If you value that time of connecting with different people in your organization for these, quick half an hour chats, whether you're in the office, whether you're remote, it doesn't really matter, because again, it's that you're taking away that chance element to say, actually, we probably have something that we want to share. We're in different teams, but we have some common elements. Let's just get together in a chat. That becomes more formalized, and actually, I think it's a great alternative once you get past that initial uncomfortableness of doing something which feels a bit strange.
So I had this conversation a while back with a client around. It's the definition of meeting. It's the wrong word to use. It's defining the collaboration and the way you want to interact, and another word needs to be used, because meetings are one thing and we all have preconceptions around them, but actually, meeting in a digital space, we need to make sure we're there at the same time, exactly the same way we would if we were just meeting up for a coffee. It's not necessarily serendipitous, but it's still the same sort of thing. And actually booking time into somebody's calendar to go for a coffee, you probably would have done that, but you would have physically been together. Let's meet for 10 o'clock and have a coffee. Well, that's no different from what you're saying, Gary, around, well, actually, let's just have a virtual chat. And I think this is one of the challenges that I think a lot of organizations and a lot of people are struggling with, is the ability for us to interact. We could be doing it in one of two places. We could be doing it in a physical space or a virtual space. But actually, the two are interchangeable, and we should be thinking about it that way, to say, actually, if we happen to be in the same location, great. We can sit at the same table. We can have a walk together. We can, stand outside and have a cigarette together. Or we can do it virtually and both be sitting at a table, but separate tables, both be sitting, having lunch, or both be out having a walk. We could both be doing that, but in different locations. I think this is one of the things that thinking about the purpose of why you're meeting actually shapes what choices you might make as to the location, as to the, whether it's got a Teams room in it, whether it's got a whiteboard in it, whether it's got a seating for 60 people. Thinking about the purpose of why you're meeting with somebody is actually the crux of it.
And I think I was pondering also on what Gary was saying, sort of getting to meet people, organising that coffee. It'd be interesting to see, and I think we saw during lockdown that people did that at the beginning. After 6-9 months, it dropped down. I know we had a kind of virtual lunch drop-in session that at the beginning people would drop in and just have a chat as you would in the canteen, and after a few months that dropped off. And whether it's the same, whether you start to get your tribes, you start to get the people you work with in kind of project sense, the people you get on with, and have that connections, that broader connection, that let's just have a quick chat, the kind of icebreaker. I know there's the bot that does that can do those connections. That's the bit that drops off. And I think there's the benefits in the office, and the benefits that people are going to the office will see more. So I agree with you, Gary. And I love that you're doing that. Again, be interested to see in 6 months how things like that are going as well.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with what you're saying, because it's visibility, right? If you see someone, you're instantly, we should get together. Remote, right? You have to work at it. I mean, I've put so I have time.
It's the habits conversation, isn't it?
It's exactly the habits. So at the end of the day, you close your workstation, do whatever you need to do to close the day. At the end of the week, one of my tasks is, who am I going to have a virtual coffee with the next week? As a reminder to myself to keep it visible, to say, I need this as part of my working week, to have at least one in there where I can just chat to people, get to know what they're doing, what I'm doing, have those conversations, which then might spark actually you've been working on such and such, you should go speak to this person. Great, actually I haven't, there's my introduction, I'll reach out, there's the next one. And you're perfectly right, Kev, it's that rather than leaving it to chance, you have to almost try and plan it in yourself to remind yourself that yes, this needs to be done. And I think that's probably where we all went wrong. We just thought, it'll carry on, but then
it'll happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to hear from anyone listening if they are still doing that kind of icebreaker, organising, having regular virtual drop-in sessions, and they've managed to keep it in. Because I'm absolutely sure there will be some people out there who have, and love to know what's been able to keep that going. Whether it's sort of sheer force of personality, management pushing it down, workplace analytics measuring it. I don't know, but it'd be good to know what's made that happen. Sorry, I'll cut you off as well.
I was going to say, I think it's also whether it's regular or whether it's too frequent or whether it's irregular. If it's irregular, it's more likely to fall by the wayside. And inevitably, I've still have chats with quite a few people on a regular basis, but they're kind of once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, just those touch points. But then also I'm kind of saying, I actually really want to go into the office. Right, so and so, are you going to be around? Can you be in the office on this day and this day? And start to say, I'm going to commit to be in the office that day, but I'm going to try and keep the Teams calls down and see who else I can see face to face. So I think
you have to do that, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are different ways. It's kind of a bit like, you know what you like to eat, so you do the online shopping and you get the same thing every week. But then you go to the supermarket and you all of a sudden you see that thing on the shelf. You go, I haven't had that for ages. Oh, I'll have a bit of that. You get home and you got a whole load of new stuff, some of which you might start ordering online, and starts to build into your regular routine. Other things you're just going to go, oh, that was nice for a change. So I think it's very much different people will deal with it differently, but it all comes down to the culture of, is it permissible for you to just go in just to meet people and chat with people, or are you obliged to go in?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I
know we said we wrap up fairly quickly. Gary, any other subjects that you're sort of seeing ahead? We're still on ALS effectively.
We are. We just kind of kept it going, right?
Yeah, which is good. Which is kind of the point. But anything else you'd cover?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think continuations of themes that we've seen before. From me on a technology side, more agile working, more DevOps, which is going to, I think, be more of a way of delivering projects or products, what we've done before, and maybe consultancy side, and what needs to change on, I guess, both sides of both IT and business, to work in this new way with working remote as well. We're still working in a situation where we've still got lots of meetings. Like I said earlier, I'm in a meeting and I'm not really focused on it. Why should I be in that meeting? Well, actually, are you working in the right way? Could you have worked in a different way than what you've done before, rather than going directly for a meeting? How these remote practices that working in open source I do on a daily basis, but how does that become the norm in an organization where you don't have a meeting with people, you're working through a a product like GitHub to manage your work and deliver work. Those kind of things. Again, interested to see if that's going to start to pick up. Working in GitHub, seeing GitHub Enterprise now becoming something that organizations now may be looking to move to help with those practices.
Kind of project management features in that would be really interesting to see as they land, and how well they work as well. That would be good.
Yeah, definitely. And it's again, the technology is fantastic. We talked about it in news about GitHub Code Spaces and all the innovation that's going on there. To see that technical innovation, the project management side of it, the delivery side of it as well. I'm sure there's going to be tons of innovation there, and we're going to see that coming. But it's all well and good, but it all comes back to this: if we can change the way that we can work to really utilize those that technology in the best way, then that's the hard part, right? Always, technology is easy and people are hard. Seeing that transformational change, that culture change, that's going to be needed is going to be interesting to see. And it always, I've brought it back to culture again, but it really is kind of the thing that is driving everything at the moment. Without that, you don't get the behaviours that you need to work in these new ways.
I think having said that, I think one thing I'd like to see that haven't so much in the project space is more and more AI driven. So kind of automating some of those things. I still look at timesheets and think we've been doing that the same way for 20 odd years. Can it not do clever things to go, well, you're working on this and this is probably what your number should be? Same as the way that I was about to say Cortana, but it's not Cortana, but Viva Insights looks at your mails and understands where you have tasks there and extracts those tasks. Can that start to extend and say, well, you finished this task or you've done this work, you've probably updated this, and start trying to get people better? And if we can get the AI helping that culture as well, I think that would similar to, I do think it's about culture. I don't think you can just use the tools, but in the same way that Viva Topics helps people suggest the knowledge, plus you've got the people curating it, seeing some of the things in more areas of having that AI come through, I think would be really, really good to see that, support it, and help recommend, give that suggestions to people to say, maybe this is the way you should be doing things, giving that nudge mentality. Yes, I'm not suggesting Clippy will make a full comeback, but the reason people hated Clippy was because it didn't work. So why can't, are we not in a much better place now where those sort of things could work? And getting that kind of nudge to people to, I love that we talk about etiquette. We should probably do another etiquette session, but having that nudge towards doing the right thing to support those processes, I think would be great.
I think the more we move towards culture as being a driver, the more likely it is that, using the psychology of nudging, all of those, the habits, the things that we look at, all the organizational psychology, those are more likely to come to prominence in terms of our interfaces, what we're doing, rather than being subtle. I think there is a question about AI and how much people trust it, how much it, how transparent it is, how easy it is to, look at it and say, well, actually it's not working. How do we change it? You're always seeing things about it not working, or doing things that are unexpected. And I think there is still a cultural hurdle to overcome, but it depends on, whether it is AI or whether it is just a very intelligent algorithm that actually works out what you're doing based on raw data.
It's AI speeding things up, not necessarily doing stuff for you, but recommending and still having that human element of validating it. I think is where I see it going. I know we said we finish up, so I'm going to go one more thing on there of where I think things are going. And it was interesting. I was thinking about this as I was looking through the news and the fact that there hasn't been much news. And do you know what? I'd quite like that to continue for the rest of the year. I'd like us to bed down on the stuff we've had, all the things we've talked about so far today. I would like some of that to kind of bed in a little bit. I don't think I want anything new right now. I want this year to just calm down a little bit. Let's let Viva bed in. Let's all have all those things that kind of been talked about at the beginning of the year release. Let's not have anything massively new. Let's calm it down for a little while. Let things settle. Let's enjoy some of this stuff. Because I was also thinking that people were talking about the Roaring '20s and the kind of post First World War and the sort of massive excitement. Because next year it's going to be damn amazing. That's what I think. So I think what do we get? I think we're probably in for a quiet 6 months. Is my estimate, and I think they've kind of announced these new things, and there'll be interesting stuff coming in there, but probably not groundbreaking. But I think there's going to be a lot of people who've been burnt out who will kind of take. I was thinking also about how we've had the holidays, we're feeling a bit relaxed, settling into things, but that's how innovation happens. When people are relaxed, think about the ideas, think about something different. It's not when everyone's under pressure. Give it 6, 9 months, maybe 12 months. I think it's going to be a whole load of new stuff that suddenly appears. And everyone goes, ooh, maybe building on those bases of Viva, building on those bases of AI, building on those next stuff. I think Ignite next year, next October, could be something special. That's my thoughts and hopes as well.
So question, will Ignite be in person?
Yes. How many people in which country? I don't know. But I think it was interesting. I know, Gary, we were talking about Anna Chu and the Cloud Conversations podcast with Rue and Pete. And they kind of asked that question in a slightly more subtle way, I should say. And I think I think it will be hybrid. I think there will be virtual elements in the same way as it was starting to go that way a bit, that you could sort of join the sessions, you could chat online at the same time, but there's going to be people, unless something goes seriously wrong at Commsverse and South Coast Summit and some of the face-to-face events. I think people will want to be back. I think the more you can support people who don't, fantastic. But there's lots of people who do.
I just think we're all going to be under virtual water in mesh, listening to all the thought bubbles. That's our future.
Oh, sweet memories.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All I could think about that was turn the bubble noise off.
Yeah, exactly.
You need AI to do that.
Yeah.
I need a better fan, a better aircon if I'm going to be wearing a headset like that for any length of time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But, that's.
But yeah, I think I agree with you on that one, Kev. I think the pillars of Viva, right, they've been announced and they're still coming, right? They still need to be rolled out and bedded out, and I think those pillars it covers such a huge area of what is employee experience and knowledge management and everything else, and it's going to need time to bed in, like you say. Each piece is a big part of the platform, and I think as companies start to come back and go through their changes, I think to go through more technology changes is going to be even more of a headache to capture. I don't
think it's just Viva as well. I think other similar things will all get bedded down a little bit. Even Teams and the amount of things with the hybrid apps and all the different parts coming through. And I was about to say fluid, whichever one it is. There's the live action one. I think apps will start to come through for that. So I don't think we'll see new ideas, but through a lot of things, there'll be a lot of bedding in and impressive stuff that's usable. And we'll also see stories come from vendors being able to build on these things as well. That'd be the other interesting space.
I think that will be interesting to see what vendors come, whether they charge for things, whether that becomes a new location where they're charging. But yeah, I think I'm
pretty sure they're going to charge for things. Their model not great otherwise. But
how they charge for it, what model will it be? Whether it's built into the store. The Windows 11 is about to drop. You've got Windows
Yeah.
365. You know, there's a lot of potential there for how things will evolve. But is whether that's evolving or whether that's kind of bedding down. I think, you know, the Power Platform has a long way to go, a very, very long way to go to increase its footprint. And I think increasing its footprint will also increase what is available there as well. And it'll be an exciting time for the Power Platform over the next 6 months.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like it's been slightly quieter with Power Platform, so whether there's something bubbling waiting to come up. Don't know. But anyway, we have been nattering on for long enough. I can see Al getting hungry, and Gary now has his light, so he's not disappearing as he has in previous episodes, which is good. But I think absolutely time's up. The one things I'd love is anyone who has reached this point, let us know what you think. Let us know, tweet Grey Hat Beard or one of us on Twitter. Would love to carry on the conversation on there as well. So do give a shout. Or there's various Discord ones. I forgot to talk about that in the news. There are some Discord channels that are starting to pop up as well. So I will put one of those into the show notes and carry on the conversation there, which is a little bit better at the sort of the quick conversation than Twitter is. So let us know what you think is going to be coming up, what's front of mind for you as well. And just one that I try not to do too often. If you have enjoyed the show, please do go and rate us, do subscribe, whether it's on YouTube or iTunes on the others. We're crap at marketing, but please tell your friends. Let us know. We do have I have had quite a few people come up and go, yeah, it's great listening to you, just on the background, and sort of fades away into nothing, but we love it. I think that's a compliment, and we will take it as such. Yeah, we are happy to be your background noise.
Just don't ask us to sing.
Yes, absolutely true on that one. Not unless we've had a good few pints. But or wine, Gary. Sorry. Thank you very much all for joining this far. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We are pushing ahead for guests. We got a few tentative lined up. We've obviously got South Coast Summit. We'll be doing a live recording then, and a few other things. So got some good plans for the rest of this year as well. Otherwise, I've been Gray.
I've been Hat.
I've been Beard.
And I forgot to mention this earlier, great new hat, Al, as well. Thank you. Do check that out on the video. Otherwise, thank you very much, and speak to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Grey Hat Beard podcast. The song Drink Up My Mateys was brought to you by Black Bones under a non-commercial attribution license.